The Ballas didn't just appear out of nowhere in Grove Street family's territory, they've been the purple-wearing nightmare of South Los Santos since the late 1980s, and their rise is tied directly to crack cocaine, corrupt cops, and one of the most brutal gang wars in GTA history. The origins, pre-1987. The Ballas formed in the poorest corners of Los Santos, primarily in Idlewood and Glen Park, as a direct counter to the growing influence of the families. While Grove Street, Seville Boulevard, and Temple Drive families were locking down green territory, the Ballas carved out purple turf through sheer violence and numbers. They were organized, aggressive, and willing to flood their own community with drugs if it meant gaining power. By the mid-80s, they'd established themselves as the dominant force in East Los Santos, and they wanted more. The early Ballas were not operating with the sophisticated drug networks they'd later build. They started with street-level hustles, robbery, extortion, protection rackets in their neighborhoods. But they watched the families grow strong through unity and territorial control, and they knew they needed something bigger to compete. The crack epidemic gave them exactly that opportunity. While the families held onto old-school gang codes about keeping hard drugs out of their own communities, the Ballas saw dollar signs and didn't hesitate. That moral flexibility became their greatest weapon, and eventually their identity. 1987. The crack epidemic and crash. This is where the Ballas went from street gang to empire. Officer Frank Tenpenny and Eddie Pulaski of Crash. Community resources against street hoodlums. They made a deal with the Ballas that changed everything. Crash is a corrupt anti-gang police unit in GTA San Andreas, directly inspired by the real LAPD crash unit that operated in Los Angeles during the same era. In the real world, CRASH officers were supposed to suppress gang activity, but some became exactly what they were fighting against: corrupt enforcers who planted evidence, brutalized communities, and worked directly with criminals for profit. Rockstar took that real-world corruption and amplified it into Tenpenny's operation, a twisted system where the cops weren't just looking the other way, they were actively running the drug trade through gang proxies. Tenpenny provided protection, looked the other way on drug shipments, and actively sabotaged the families in exchange for cash and control. The Ballas became the primary distributors of crack cocaine in Los Santos, and the money started rolling in fast. Grove Street families who refused to deal heavy drugs started losing ground. The Ballas used that cash to buy better weapons, expand territory, and recruit harder. This is the era that broke the families apart from the inside. The partnership was not just about money. Tenpenny used the Ballas as a weapon to destabilize any gang that wouldn't play ball. He'd tip off Ballas hit squads about families' movements, erase evidence when Ballas members got arrested, and even arrange for families' OGs to get locked up on fabricated charges. The system was rigged, and the Ballas knew it. They operated with impunity because the one force that should have been stopping them was instead making sure they thrived. 1987 to 1992, the families fall apart. With Crash running interference and the Ballas flush with drug money, the families began to fracture. Internal beef between Grove Street, Seville Boulevard, and Temple Drive sets meant nobody was united against the purple threat. The Ballas took advantage. They pushed into Ganton, Playa del Seville, and even parts of Willowfield. Grove Street lost soldiers, lost respect, and lost blocks. Families members started switching colors or leaving the life entirely. Some got locked up, others got killed. The ones who stayed loyal were fighting a war they couldn't win because the enemy had infinite resources and the cops in their pocket. By 1992, Grove Street was surrounded, weak, and leaderless. This is the world Carl Johnson comes back to after 5 years in Liberty City. His brother, Sean Sweet Johnson, is trying to hold the hood together with duct tape and loyalty, but the Ballas are everywhere, and Grove Street is dying. The house CJ grew up in is one of the last green spots in a sea of purple. Sweet's still banging, still representing, but he's fighting ghosts. Most of the old Grove Street OGs are dead, in prison, or too strung out to matter. The Ballas didn't just win territory, they broke the spirit of an entire neighborhood. 1992. CJ returns and the war reignites. Carl's return kicks off the bloodiest chapter in Ballas Grove Street history. The game opens with the Ballas running Los Santos. They've got the drugs, the guns, and the cops on their side. Grove Street has nothing but heart and a few loyal OGs. CJ and Sweet start reclaiming territory block by block, tagging over purple spray paint, taking back crack houses, and putting Ballas in the dirt. But the Ballas aren't just one gang. They operate in multiple sets with their own leaders and territory. The most prominent sets CJ goes to war with are the Front Yard Ballas in Idlewood, Rollin Heights Ballas in Jefferson, and Temple Drive Ballas in Temple. Each set controls different drug operations, each one has its own soldiers, and each one has to be dismantled piece by piece. The turf wars aren't clean. CJ rolls deep with Grove Street shooters, hitting Ballas corners in broad daylight, sparking chaos across South Los Santos. Every block taken back is paid for in bodies. The Ballas don't retreat quietly. They retaliate hard, rolling through Ganton in lowriders, spraying green houses with automatic weapons, trying to send a message that Grove Street's resurgence won't last. But CJ's different from Sweet. He's not just fighting for pride. He's fighting smart, hitting their income, burning their product, and making it expensive to be a Balla. The drive-by on Sweet's house. The Ballas don't play fair. After CJ and Sweet start winning back turf, the Ballas retaliate with a drive-by on Grove Street itself, hitting Sweet's house during a neighborhood meeting. This is personal now. The war escalates. CJ starts hitting Ballas crack dens hard, burning their product, killing their dealers, and choking off their income. The mission Doberman has CJ reclaim Glen Park from the Ballas entirely, a symbolic victory that shows Grove Street isn't dead yet. Taking Glen Park isn't just about one block. It's about proving the Ballas can bleed, that their empire has cracks, and that Grove Street still has the heart to fight back even when the odds are impossible. But the Ballas still have one major advantage: Big Smoke and Ryder. The Betrayal, Big Smoke and Ryder flip. Turns out two of Grove Street's own OGs, Melvin Big Smoke Harris and Lance Ryder Wilson, have been working with the Ballas and Tenpenny the entire time. Smoke saw the drug money and wanted in. He set up CJ's mother Beverly Johnson's death in 1987, orchestrating a Ballas drive-by to destabilize Grove Street and create the chaos he needed to build his own empire. By 1992, Smoke is running a massive crack operation out of his fortified mansion in East Los Santos, supplied by the Ballas and protected by Crash. Ryder's just along for the ride, too dumb and high to see the bigger picture. The Ballas essentially absorbed Smoke and Ryder's operation, making them an extension of the Purple Gang's empire. This betrayal cuts deeper than any drive-by. Smoke was Grove Street. He was family. The fact that he sold out his own hood for a piece of the crack trade shows just how corrosive the Ballas' influence became. They didn't just fight the families, they corrupted them from the inside, turning loyalty into a commodity and brotherhood into a transaction. Smoke's mansion becomes the heart of the Ballas' operation, a fortress where purple and green money mix, and where the line between gang member and kingpin disappears entirely. Sweet's arrest and the Ballas' peak power. After the mission reuniting the families, Sweet gets arrested and sent to prison, and CJ is exiled to the countryside by Tenpenny. With Sweet locked up and CJ gone, the Ballas take over everything. Grove Street is completely lost. The green is gone, purple flags fly in Ganton. The families are finished. This is the Ballas at their absolute peak. They control the drug trade, the territory, and the streets. Los Santos belongs to them. They're not just a gang anymore. They're an institution, embedded so deep into the city's criminal infrastructure that removing them seems impossible. But their downfall is already in motion because CJ is still breathing and he's coming back with an army. 1992, the downfall begins. CJ returns to Los Santos with connections, money, and a plan. He wages war on Big Smoke's crack empire, which is propping up the Ballas' entire operation. The mission, End of the Line, is the final blow. CJ storms Smoke's fortress, kills him, and burns his entire operation to the ground. With Smoke dead and Tenpenny exposed, the Ballas lose their supplier, their protection, and their income all at once. Sweet is released from prison, and Grove Street families reclaim their turf in a massive citywide gang war. The Ballas are pushed back to Idlewood and Jefferson, weakened, broke, and leaderless. The collapse is brutal and fast. Without Tenpenny feeding them intel and covering their tracks, Ballas members start getting arrested in real numbers. Without Smoke's operation, the drug money dries up. The sets start infighting, blaming each other for the losses, fracturing into smaller cliques with no unified leadership. Grove Street doesn't just take back their blocks, they humiliate the Ballas, proving that an empire built on corruption and betrayal can't survive when the foundation crumbles. Post-1992, the Ballas in decline. After San Andreas, the Ballas never recover. By 2013 in GTA 5, they're still around, but they're a shadow of what they were. They operate in small pockets, Davis, Rancho, Chamberlain Hills, still wearing purple, still selling drugs, but they're fragmented and disorganized. There's no central leadership, no empire, just surviving sets trying to hold on to what little turf they have left. The families are in the same boat, but the Ballas lost harder because their power was always built on outside help. Without Tenpenny, without Smoke, without the crack money, they're just another dying gang in a city that's moved on to new criminals. Franklin Clinton, a former Families Adjacent gang member, barely even mentions them in GTA 5. They're background noise now, a relic of the early 90s when purple and green meant everything. The Ballas' legacy. The Ballas represent everything wrong with the crack era. Outside forces using gangs as pawns, communities destroyed for profit, and young men dying over colors and blocks they don't even own. They were never the real villains of San Andreas. Tenpenny was. Big Smoke was. The Ballas were just the weapon, but they pulled the trigger willingly, and for that, they earned every bullet Grove Street put in them. Speaking of betrayal, Big Smoke selling out Grove Street is just one chapter in GTA's long history of backstabbing, double crosses, and family turning on family. From Liberty City to Vice City to Los Santos, the entire franchise is built on people you trust putting bullets in your back. If you want to see how deep that rabbit hole goes, check out the 7 levels of betrayal in GTA history, where we break down every major sellout, ranked from petty to unforgivable. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button. We're breaking down every corner of the GTA universe, one mission at a time.